What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello and welcome to Throwback Thursday. This is a series on my channel that I started as a way to get use out of the older eyeshadow palettes in my collection. So the way this works is every Sunday I post a bonus video with the footage of me going through my entire collection and pulling 4 palettes for y'all to choose from. From there, I post a poll over my community section with the names and pictures of each of the palettes. I give y'all a few days to vote, typically, and then that brings us to today. Now, unfortunately, we did not get a Throwback Thursday video last week because, as many of you are aware, I was serving as a jury member on a court case. So it kind of jumbled everything up, got me really behind on content. Tomorrow's video will be a haul showing you everything that I have so we can kind of decide where to go from there. But we're gonna go ahead and play with the winner from last week's Throwback Thursday. Now, honestly, I had completely forgotten which palettes I even chose for this until I went back and looked. So I can't tell you how the poll numbers went because I don't remember, but the winner ultimately was the Cold Moon palette from Ensley. And this palette right here is a cool tone lover's dream. It is absolutely beautiful. I love the artwork. I do really like the color story. It's just not one that I gravitate towards as much as I was hoping I would whenever I purchased it, but it's still beautiful. The matte formula in here is incredible. The shimmers are absolutely stunning, and I'm excited to show it a little bit of love. And while we do that, I am going to give you a little bit of insight to how the last week and a half of my life went. So let's go ahead and zoom in and get my hair out of my face, prime my eyes, and jump into this look. Alright, y'all, so we are zoomed in. My eyes are primed with my MAC paint pot in the shade Painterly, and we are ready to get this ball rolling on this look. So for this one, I think I'm going to do something that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. I really want to stick with like the mauves and this pink, maybe a little bit of this sagey green on the inner corner, and then just a beautiful sparkle all over the lid. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this shade right here, this really pretty pink shade, which is called Winter Rose. And I'm going to go ahead and pick that up with my BK Beauty 201 brush. And I'm going to start by putting this in my crease. So before I jump into my story time, let me just say I am so happy to be back. I have missed y'all. I have missed filming. I have missed being super creative and interacting with y'all. And I am very disconnected from the community. Like, truly, I have no idea what has released, what is coming out. I have no idea. I have not ordered anything since I started jury duty. So tomorrow's video will be a haul of everything that has accumulated in my collection since this has started. Everything is stuff that I ordered before I was summoned. So I really want to do that so y'all can let me know like what you're interested in, what you want to see dedicated videos on, what you want to see in like a get ready with me, a multiple palettes, multiple looks video, or what you just could care less about. So I'm really excited for that video. Like I said, it's going to go up tomorrow, but let's go ahead and jump into my last week and a half. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a trigger warning here. I'm not gonna go into any details on any facts or anything that was brought to us, not because I can't, but just because I don't want to, but I am gonna be bringing up some sensitive topics. So just a little bit of a trigger warning here before we begin. So if you're watching this and you have no idea what I'm talking about whenever I say that I was a juror on a trial, here in the United States, if you are accused of a crime, everybody has the right to a trial by jury. And basically that is a group of random people that are selected to sit and listen to the entire case. So you listen to the evidence, the testimony, everything, and then ultimately you make the decision if that person is guilty or not guilty of the crime that they are accused of doing. So that is what I had the opportunity to do. So, let me go ahead and finish putting this color on so we can move on to the next one. So I love that. I think that's such a beautiful pink shade. So next I want to go into, I think, I'm thinking this shade right here, this really pretty like mauvey purple tone, which is called Catmint. It's a very odd name. But I'm going to take that shade and I'm going to put that one on the outer corner. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up with a BK Beauty 211 brush and just start to build up the shape, a little bit of depth, and a little bit of definition out here. So back to what I was saying. So I was summoned for jury duty to go in on November 11th, which was a week ago on Monday. So I went in, and basically when you go in, you're going in with hundreds of people. And I mean probably upwards of at least 400 people, if not more than that. And basically you sit in a room and you wait for your assigned number to be called, or the like the range in which your number falls to be called. And from there you are assigned to a panel. So my number was called and I was assigned to a panel of 65 jurors. And on a jury there are 12 jurors, and then you have 2 alternates, and the alternates are there to hear everything, but ultimately they don't really get to vote. They're just there if somebody cannot make it for the rest of the case. And when I say cannot make it, I mean like they are really sick, they had a surgery, they had a sudden death, or maybe a car accident, something like that. It cannot be work related, or I didn't feel like coming in, because they will come get you if you don't show up. We didn't have that happen, but it can happen. So anyways, so you are taken to the courtroom, and in this case we were taken to a criminal courtroom, and you are put through what is called voir dire. And to my understanding, voir dire is basically a screening process. So in the room you have the 65 people who are on the panel, and then you have the judge, and you have all the parties from the prosecution and the defense, and they basically explain to you the law, how everything works. They go over things pertaining to the case but not detailing the case, because you can't know anything until court starts. And they ask you a bunch of questions, and then from there they collectively decide who should be on the jury. And I was one of the lucky 14 selected. I will say we had a fantastic group. I really enjoyed everybody that I was in there with. And we kind of went through, I don't know, trauma bonding together really. But anyways, we were selected. So we went home Monday and we got to come back the next morning. And it started out that we were coming in at like 11, which I was like, oh, this is cool. 11 to 5, easy peasy. You know, I don't have to get up at the crack of dawn. Well, that was very short lived, because there were several mornings I was up at 4:30 to be downtown, because while I'm only about 25 miles away from downtown, depending on traffic, it can take an hour to get there, and then you have to park and you have to be inside, and you don't want to be the reason that court is running late. So anyways, we went back, and as many of you I'm sure have figured out, I was on a murder trial. So I did know that going into it. We were told it was a murder trial, but we weren't told anything more than that. And this murder trial does involve domestic violence. It does involve child abuse of many natures. And let me just say now, before we get into the rest of it, that none of the child abuse accusations ever came to fruition. So it was not true, which was a huge relief for me. So I'm just going to tell you now, none of that was true. I'm going to bring that shade down onto the outer portion of my lower lash line as well. And then we're going to move on and deepen this outer corner up just a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to go back with that first shade, Winter Rose, and I'm just going to put it along the rest of my lower lash line, just kind of blending everything together. So when I tell y'all this story, I'm not going to, like I said, get into a whole lot of detail, just because it doesn't need to be fully detailed. And I'm also not going to use their names, not because I can't, but just because I don't want to. I don't feel comfortable for the family, for me, for all of it. I just don't want to. You don't really need that information. So I'm going to refer to them as John and Jane. I know, real creative, but John is going to be the defendant and Jane is going to be the deceased. So let me go ahead and finish this up. All right, so to deepen up my outer corner, we have some options, and I'm kind of thinking maybe of doing this brown shade up here. I think that's gonna go really pretty. I think I want to bring in this purple just a little bit more. So I'm going to bring in the purple a little bit more, and then we're going to go into this shade right here, which is called Garnet, and put that on my outer corner to deepen everything up. I'm sorry if this is a little scattered. I feel very out of my element because it's been a little while, so just bear with me. If this is the first video of mine you're watching, you're in for a wild ride. But okay, so back to my story. So this happened back in March of 2022. So John and Jane had known each other since high school. They were in an on again, off again relationship that eventually produced 2 children together. And at some point, I'm assuming it was the end of 2021. We never got like a clear picture on when, but the relationship between the 2 of them ultimately dissolved. They were no longer dating. They were no longer serious. They were just co-parenting, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that garnet shade up with my Singe Beauty EO2 and deepen up the outer corner. So they were no longer in a relationship, but Jane had started dating somebody else. And I'm assuming, this is just me speculating, that John was not too happy about it. He was a little jealous. It sounded like he still had feelings for her. But at the beginning of 2022, John found out that the man that Jane was dating was a sex offender. So he was a registered sex offender. We don't know what kind. We don't know any of that. Maybe it was brought up, but anyways, and from what we understand, the minute Jane found out, she cut off the entire relationship. They were no longer dating. There was no proof that they were dating. Like, he was out of the life. Well, I guess John did not believe that, and he ultimately decided to take the children from Jane. So about 2 weeks later, he unenrolled them from school and took them from her, took them to live with him, basically. And as any mother would do, she got a lawyer and she filed with the courts to start a custody battle. And it was a very contested custody battle that lasted almost a month until the judge had decided that a temporary order was going to be that the father, which was John, needed to return the children to Jane the following day at 5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock comes around and he does not show up. So of course Jane calls him, where are you? Where are you? And at 6 o'clock he's like, I'm here, I'm outside your house. So Jane walks outside and she's recording it on a second phone because she was advised by her lawyer to record all interactions, phone conversations, everything with him for her own safety, for evidence, yada yada. Very typical, actually. So she walks outside to his car. She's happy to see her kids. She opens the back door and she is shot 5 times, ultimately ending her life. And that was kind of where everything left off. He did eventually turn himself in the next day, but this was after he made threats to her sister. I do want to say her niece witnessed this. So we heard everything, we listened to everything, and it was very, very, very hard to listen to. We heard the footage, we heard phone calls, we saw autopsy pictures, which I was not ready for or prepared for, and was very traumatic to see, something I had never seen before. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So for all over the lid, I kind of want to play with this one right here. It's this really pretty multi-chrome. It's got like a whole bunch of flips in it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It is a little bit more on the textured side, but it still smooths out really nicely and looks beautiful on the eye. So I'm thinking that's gonna look really pretty on the lid, kind of like a sort of like fairy look to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime my eyes with my NYX glitter primer, and then we're gonna take that shade, which is called Saturnalia. That's probably wrong. And I'm going to put that all over my lid. And for that, I am going to use my BK Beauty 203 brush. So those are all the facts that are presented to us. And we have, you know, all the evidence, the testimony, everything. And last Thursday, we adjourned. So up until this point, we have not been able to discuss anything, not even amongst each other. You can't go home and talk about it. All you can do is basically talk to yourself in the car, which I did a lot of. I'm sure I was the crazy person on the freeway talking to themselves. But so you're adjourned, which means you get taken back into the jury room. All electronic devices are taken, and at that point you can discuss everything. You can pull evidence, you can rehear testimony, whatever you need to do. And so we adjourned, and we decided Thursday that we were all gonna go home, kind of sleep on everything, because there was never a smoking gun, so to speak. Like, the video never showed a clear shot of him. So we just kind of wanted to make sure that we felt good with the decision that we had made. So we came back Friday morning and ultimately made the decision that he was guilty. So we did that, and I felt really good about that. If I'm being completely honest, I really did. Just after everything presented, it was pretty obvious. Now from here, and I don't know if this is every case, it doesn't sound like it is, and I don't know what decides this, but we moved on to the next phase of the trial, which was sentencing. So we found him guilty. So at this point, he is guilty, and we have to decide a few things. So the first thing we have to decide is, was it a crime of passion or was it a premeditated crime? And then we have to decide if he's going to get the minimum sentence or if he's going to get the maximum. Now, we were only given up to life in prison, which is fine with me. Execution or anything like that was not anything that we had to decide on. We also don't get to decide on parole, so we had to decide on that. And then there's also a fine that can be associated with this, and the fine doesn't go directly to the family. It goes into like a fund for victims. So at this second phase, you move on and you start to hear the why, and that's when you start to hear more about what happened and why he did what he did, the events leading up to it in a little bit more detail. So ultimately, it came down to, he found out that he was giving his children back to her, and shortly after that, his children told them that their mother had sexually assaulted them. Like I said, there's no proof to any of this. It never happened, but this is what he said that his children told him. And he decides to call the police, and the police told him to take them to the hospital so that they can go through what is called a SANE exam. Now, I had never heard the term SANE exam before, but a SANE exam is basically where a SANE examination nurse, an RN, whatever, she does a very thorough look at the body without any clothes on. So it is very traumatic, it is very intrusive, and both of these children were under the age of 10. So it was very hard to listen to that, and this was done at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, that was very disturbing to me. That really unsettled with me. And up until this point, I didn't know if there was any truth to this. So that really hit me hard. Editing Sarah popping in here for just a quick second. I forgot to mention that we did find out during this point of the case that he had already been to prison twice for basically human trafficking. The official charge was conspiracy to transport an undocumented alien for financial gain. So we did find that out, and that's kind of why he had been in and out of their lives. So just a little background real quick, that he had been in prison for that, and he was actually still in prison up to the court date for that reason. But I just want to throw that in real quick, but back to the video. But so he did that, and then of course the hospital reported it to CPS, which is Child Protective Services, and somebody came out that afternoon. Like, this moved very quickly. This is all within less than 24 hours from the minute he found out to the minute the crime happened. So CPS caseworker comes out. She talks with one of the children because the other one was sleeping because he was tired, and she ultimately says that the children have to go back, that she can't advise him to not to, and that she is going to schedule what is called a forensic interview, I believe is what it is. And basically that's where somebody who is trained to talk to children on their level talks to them about, you know, the parts that people can't touch, and if anybody did this, if anybody did that, they kind of get the truth out of them, and then the case proceeds from there. It never got to that point because he took it into his own hands, and instead of not taking the children back or taking them to the police station or running, he decided to go do what he did. So we heard all of this, and he did ultimately decide to take the stand, which was probably the worst thing he could have ever done, because the things that he said were very disturbing. He had some outbursts that really implicated him on this, and I'm not going to get into it because it was hearing pure evil coming from somebody. There was no remorse, there was no concern for the kids. It was all a ploy to get even. So let's see, what do we want to do for the inner corner? That looks absolutely beautiful, by the way. Let's choose an inner corner shade and then I can finish my story. So for the inner corner, I kind of think we want to do this matte shade right here, this really pretty matte mint green shade. We know I love a matte green inner corner. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with that shade. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pick that up with a Singe Beauty EO5 brush. So anyways, we finished hearing everything on Tuesday. Actually, we finished everything on Tuesday, but I took yesterday for myself. I really needed it. So we ultimately decided that it was not a crime of passion. We sentenced him to life in prison and we gave him a $10,000 fine. And when I tell you the wave of emotion that came over me after the judge gave that ruling, I did not expect it. I was bawling when we were walking out of the courtroom, me and one other jurors. And let me just say, I am not somebody who likes to cry in front of other people or be around somebody who is crying. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. But there was just this wave of emotion from, you know, finally coming to a closure after hearing and seeing everything and seeing the family get the closure and the justice that they deserved for their sister. It went all over me. So we ultimately decided for that, and that ended everything. But something kind of cool that I did not realize was a thing. I love that, by the way. That looks absolutely beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do my eyeliner, mascara, and all of that, and I am gonna do it while I finish telling you the story. So let me decide on what I want to use and we will carry on. All right, so I found everything I was looking for. So in my lower waterline, I'm gonna go in with my Charlotte Tilbury Walk of No Shame liner. I'm gonna line my lid with my ZC liquid liner. And then for mascara, I'm gonna go in with my Lancome Idole Lash Waterproof Mascara, just because my allergies are flaring up like nobody's business. So what I was saying was something really cool that I did not realize that they do, and maybe this isn't in every courtroom, but once you're done and the judge releases you, where you can say whatever you want to whoever you want about whatever you heard, you go back to the jury room, and of course you get your devices back and you're ultimately released. But the judge comes in and talks to you, and she talks to you like a human being, and you can ask her questions as to like why this happened, why that didn't happen. She thanks you for your service. It's a really cool moment. And then from there, the lawyers come in, so both sides come in, and I thought that was really cool as well, because again, you can give feedback, you can ask questions, they kind of chat with you. And I have a whole new respect for defense attorneys. So I always thought they were kind of like these sleazy scumbags that just, you know, have no conscience and whatever. I'm not trying to bring offense to anybody, but that's kind of how I felt. Like, how can you do that? And once we got to talk to him and kind of he explained to us why he does what he does, it really made sense. Like, it makes the system go round, because everybody has this right to a trial. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. You know, you can't use somebody not testifying against them. Like, it's really cool the way that it works. And both lawyers were absolutely fantastic. Both sides were fantastic. They gave a really good case, and he explained, you know, he says what he says and asks the questions that he asks because he has to do what his client wants to do. And I did find out that a defense lawyer has no control as to whether or not his client or their client decide to take the stand. And ultimately, he did not want him to, but he did it anyway. But anyways, that was pretty cool. I thought that was really neat that you got to do that, because you can ask, you can discuss, you know, you can say, why didn't you this? Why didn't you that? And at one point, the prosecution was like leading up to the data pulled from his cell phone, and it triangulated where he was, and we got cut off and went home, and she never brought it back up. So since it was never admitted, we couldn't use that. And we were like, oh my God, we needed that information. Like, that was what we needed. So we got to ask her about that, and she explained why she never came back to it. So anyways, from that point, I think about half, maybe a little less than half of everybody, or a little less than half, went home. They decided they were done, but we were told that we could go into the courtroom and be a part of the gallery, and we could see him get formally sentenced, and then we could hear the victim statements, which the victim impact statements is what they're called. And basically that's anybody who wants to get up and read a statement to the now accused and say what they have to say. So we decided we were going to see the whole thing through. And let me tell you, when the sentencing part came up, we got to see a side of him that made me feel so incredibly good about the decision that we came to, because there's not a doubt in my mind that if he had gotten out, he would have gone over to the sister's house and finished what he started. But there was outbursts, and there was snarky comments back to the judge. So he got sentenced, and then the victim's impact statements came up, and it was 3 family members that spoke. This is really drying out. I do have a new liner, but we're going to save that for another day. But it was very impactful to hear what they had to say. But the last one that spoke, this is really hard to do and talk. The last one that spoke was Jane's brother. And he gave such a moving, I say speech, but it's a statement, you know, talking about how he had known him for so long and looked up to him like a brother, and they took him in and loved him, and how he was disappointed in him. And it was truly moving, and just so sad to see that you went from somebody that you loved and cared for, who took somebody else that you loved and cared for and did what they did. So he finished his statement and he walked off, and I kid you not, John gave him a slow clap. And it was the creepiest thing I've ever witnessed in my life. And I'm sitting there listening to this, I'm sobbing. They take him back, and we got to give our condolences to the family. We got to hug them. We found out the kids are doing fantastic, and they are going to be adopted by their aunt. So a very bittersweet ending, but it was a lot to take in. This was a lot more than I expected it to be. It was hard, and I wouldn't say traumatic, but there's things that stick with you forever, and this is something that will definitely stick with me for the rest of my life. I don't ever think I will forget the names. I will never forget the date. I will never forget the faces and the things that I saw and heard. But even with all of that, I would 100% do it again, because I felt so good about what we did, about the justice that we brought, the closure that we brought. And yeah, so I just say that if you're ever selected for jury duty and you go into it the way everybody does, oh, please don't select me, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, da 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 da, keep in mind what you're doing, because it was truly eye-opening for me, and it really made me look at it a different way. Yeah, you don't get paid much. In the county I live in, we did get a huge raise, so we did get a substantial amount of money. Not as much as most people make at a job and things like that, but it's more than like $1 a day. We also got fed, we got free parking, but I would 100% do it again. Now, I would hope that I get a very boring case. I don't ever want to get put on a case like that again, especially with children and domestic violence involved, because it was very hard to listen to. And I was so glad that we never heard from the children. They are now 9 and 12, I believe, and they were subpoenaed. The prosecutor had said that she would never call those children to the stand, but you don't know what the defense is going to do. And I told the defense attorney, I was like, I thank you so much for not calling those kids to testify, because I did not sleep Monday night because of that. And he was like, no, why did you think I would pull the children? And I was like, because he made a comment that he wanted us to hear what his children had to say. And he was like, I may not have control over whether or not he takes the stand, but I would never call children to the stand, and I would never call somebody to the stand that I don't know what they're gonna say. So that was very comforting, because it really makes you realize that he truly knows the impact that this is having on everybody. But that is my last week and a half. That is what I went through. That is everything that I endured, everything that has kind of been going on. And like I said, I am so happy to be back to doing this, but I've got a lot of catching up to do. All right, y'all, so this is the completed look, and I think this turned out absolutely beautiful. Why have I never done this color combination before? I will never know, but I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I love the multi-chrome. The matte formula is incredible. I really think the Ensley Rain matte formula is very comparable to the matte formula from Bella Beauty Bar, which is my absolute favorite matte formula. It's impeccable, and this one is too, but I've said before, the only thing that kind of deters me from Ensley Rain, not only the price point, but they always like to do more flaky textured shimmers, and they're just not favorites of mine. Yes, you can smooth them out. Sometimes they accentuate texture, but they can be a little bit more finicky, a little bit more messy. But ultimately, I think this turned out absolutely beautiful, and I'm excited that this is the look that I get to wear for the rest of my day. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the lights down, show you that shimmer, that shift, that sparkle, and we're gonna go ahead and close out this video. All right, y'all, so that is going to complete this week's Throwback Thursday video, and I hope y'all enjoyed this one. I know it was a little bit longer. I know I was a little bit more long-winded and a little bit more focused on my story versus the actual look, but I do hope that I was able to give you a little bit of inspiration. And as always, if there's an eyeshadow palette that you want to see included in Throwback Thursday, leave it down below in that comment section, and if I have it in my collection, I am more than happy to pull it and have it be an option. But let me know all of your thoughts down below. If you have any questions, let me know those as well. But I want to know what you thought of the look, which palette you voted for. Let's have that conversation, light up that comment section. And as usual, I want to thank you all so much for watching my video and spending your time with me. It truly does mean so much to me. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up before you leave. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so that you can be notified of all my future posts here on my channel. I do post quite a few videos every single week, and I wouldn't want you to miss one. But until my next video, have a good one. Bye.